I graduated Northeastern University in 1961. And
Where are you from, Norman?
I'm from the Boston area. I'm always a Boston kid.
I thought that might be the case. So you go to Northeastern, you graduate, and what do you want to do with your life?
Okay. Then we got married,
Uh-huh.
and I was an ROTC. And I believed in the military that if they say today is Sunday, let's go to church. I was always of that view. I followed the rules and I played the game.
Right.
And during, the last year in Northeastern, we were married on April 16th, 1961. And I got orders when I graduated, when I finished, for the Republic of South Korea. Those were the, my Army orders to go. And after that, maybe I would say about a month or so after I had those orders, I was in a class at Northeastern, in a history class. I remember it exactly. Donald S. Tucker was the professor.
Uh-huh.
He said to me, he got a call that there are two men in the president of the university's office who wanted to meet with you. Well, I got nervous. I knew my tuition was late. I struggled, to pay the college tuition. And I went down and to meet with them, and they told me that I had been selected, never told me why, for a special position. If I could pass a background investigation and a polygraph, maybe several polygraphs. So I have nothing to hide. And, I was an open book. I was a kid. And I said, that would be fine. I said, where is it? They said they couldn't tell me. But all they would say was it would be in the continental United States, and my wife could go with me. Well, if you were that age and you just got married, she couldn't go with me to Korea, but she certainly could go, with me here in the United States, what they said. And I assumed that I could pass a background investigation. I'm an open book. And obviously, I went home and spoke with my wife, and she says, let's do it. So I contacted them back, and we went into this investigatory process.
Uh-huh.
And here I am, almost 88 years later, with several polygraphs and a lot of interviews and background investigations. And I found out that it was in Washington, the military, they called it the Military District of Washington.
Right. What
in hell is the Military District of Washington? The whole place is Washington.
Right.
As far as I was concerned. And are you familiar with the mountain?
The mountain.
Mount Weather. Mount Weather.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, that's another White House. That's about 48 miles as the crow flies. That's the special facility, they call it. Special projects, so on and so forth. It was on CBS. It was on the History Channel news. They did a whole thing about it just a few weeks ago.
So this is the place where the president can go if there's he can't be in the White House.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And in that Mount Weather, we had we could put up 3,000 people. Blast gates. We had our own fire department. Corps of Engineer Fire Department. We had our own police department, Corps of Engineer Police Department, a mortuary, crematorium, reservoir, cafeteria, fully staffed hospital, a White House in there with the furniture that Kennedy used, you know, down at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Right.
People, a lot of people, most people were never aware of this.
Yeah.
And it took, it was 48 miles to down, you know, right down to the White House. They kept the Marine helicopters there to fly, you know, if we had to go back and forth, you know, Marine 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you had to go back and forth, or they had military vehicles, which was a plane I remember distinctly, Pontiac Bonneville, 4-door sedans, either in gray, black, maroon, or what have you, with radios in it and everything. The old-fashioned, like the black phones,
Yeah.
was right in there.
So what was your job in this setup?
My job at first was in the crypto area. Then, within a couple of months, they moved me down to the front office as adjutant to the commanding officer. And with that special assignment as adjutant, you know, there's code words for everything. When I say, you know, were you ever in the military?
No.
Okay. So there's always code words for everything. I became the military liaison as a military attache to Jim Rowley of the U.S. Secret Service and John McCone, the director of the CIA.
And who was your boss?
My boss at that time was Lieutenant Colonel Charles F. Moore.
And so you're handling communications between Moore and Secret Service and CIA?
Yes.
Okay.
And we were involved what they call the continuity of government program. Is if the president is incapacitated by a nuclear holocaust, if the president is incapacitated by a natural disaster, or if the president is incapacitated by an untimely death, we would come into play here.
Right.
And I remember Kennedy wanting to speak with Nikita Khrushchev after the XCOM meeting that night during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I was in the room there, and he says, Norman, get Khrushchev on the line. I had to go to the next building over to reach out to Chief Warrant Officer Bill Elder of the White House Communications Agency. And together, we got Nikita Khrushchev on the line. They wanted to speak face to face.
Right.
And it was interesting because they had stated that neither one of them wanted a nuclear holocaust. All through the Cuban Missile Crisis, Russia denied that there were missiles in Cuba.
Right.
We knew there were missiles there. We saw, with the U-2 flights, we saw everything. But there was deny. Khrushchev admitted there were missiles, and I'm making a longer story short. Khrushchev admitted there were missiles, and Jack Kennedy says, Mr. Khrushchev, we don't want a war. You don't want a war. It'll solve nothing. And Khrushchev agreed. And Kennedy told Khrushchev, I want the missiles out of Cuba starting tomorrow.
So, and you're in the room when he's saying this?
Exactly. And then Khrushchev, but he says, Premier Khrushchev, Khrushchev states to Kennedy, he says, well, you have to take the missiles out of Turkey.
Wait, no, wait. So, Norm, just a second. So, Kennedy's on the phone with Khrushchev. How can you hear what Khrushchev is saying?
Well, the translator's right there.
Okay.
It's coming pretty close.
Okay.
This mountain facility was unbelievable. It was a city into itself.
So,
Okay.
and this is where Kennedy had taken refuge during the crisis?
Yes.
Okay.
And he stated, Khrushchev said, well, you have to get the missiles out of Turkey. He
Right.
knew that the U.S. had missiles in Turkey. However, what he didn't know was the missiles in Turkey weren't functional at that particular time. I mean, but Kennedy says, we'll get them out. And the next morning, the missiles in Cuba started to go. They started, who was going to back down first? Kennedy did not want to have, a standoff. He wanted to have a blockade. And the executive committee of the White House, that's Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, so on and so forth, voted. And some of them were hawks, they wanted to, let's go attack,
Yeah.
Cuba, bomb Cuba, we can take them out in a half hour. And, every action causes a reaction.
Yeah. Now, Norman, let me just ask you one question. So, you're in the room with Kennedy. What are your impressions of him as he's, facing these questions and making decisions?
Well, he was cool, calm, and he was an outstanding speaker, Just sitting back with that determined look, on his face. I was a kid.
Uh-huh.
I was a kid. I was overwhelmed, yet I said, do your job, Norm. Do your job, Norm.
Right.
I wasn't worldly wise yet,
Yeah.
but certainly every day was a new experience when you were dealing with admirals, generals, and what have you. We had some hawks, Curtis LeMay, Chief of Staff of the Air Force.
What were your impressions of him?
He was a tough guy. He wanted to bomb the hell out of everyone. Let's go. General Maxwell Taylor was more, laid back. A few of them were laid back. Robert McNamara, Secretary of Defense, he was looking at Kennedy and he knew that a blockade would be better. These people were so interesting and knowledgeable and prepared for whatever. David M. Shoup, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and I forget the Admiral's name from the Navy.
Anderson?
Possibly.
George Anderson?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and are you living up there in Mount Weather, Maryland, or are you living in the district at this time?
We were living in Winchester, Virginia.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And in our apartment, we had a small apartment. There was another couple, a young couple, right next door. And I knew he was in the Army. And they come over to introduce himself. Lo and behold, I found out that he was Jacqueline Kennedy's chief telephone operator. Larry Stevens was his name. And his wife was Gwen, and she worked in the library in Winchester. And then someone came, another young lieutenant was assigned there, and to be my counterpart in the crypto unit to take over where I left off, Kenneth Nakahara, but he's passed.
Uh-huh.
He was my age. He's passed, and lo and behold, I'm the last one left alive from all that.
From the continuity of government.
From the continuity of government program.
Right. Okay. So that's an appropriate place, Norman. So let's, we were talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis, October 1962.
Yes.
Um, uh, just to finish that story, what do you recall about the resolution when Kennedy realizes that there's not going to be a war? Everybody realizes there's not going to be a war. Where were you?
However, there was more to that. We didn't realize till several years afterward that Moscow had dispatched 4 submarines to head toward the waters off the United States, in between the United States and Cuba. They were given an envelope, and they were not supposed to open the envelope until they were halfway to the United States. What those orders were, if they didn't receive orders from Russia to stand down, for them to do what they felt they had to do in arming the missiles and attacking the United States.
Right.
And 3 of them received orders, stand down. 1 did not. It was Arkhipov, I think.
Arkhipov, right.
Yes, Arkhipov.
I know the Arkhipov story.
Okay.
Yeah, so tell people what happened.
So he says he didn't want it in his conscience, to start a nuclear holocaust.
Yeah, just wait, just
Yeah.
to remind people, Arkhipov is the commander of one of the Soviet submarines.
Exactly.
Who has authorization to use his weapons if he feels he needs to.
That's correct. The man had a conscience. I met personally Khrushchev's son, Dr. Sergei Khrushchev, who was here he emigrated here to the United States, he and his wife. And my wife and I sat beside he and his wife at the Kennedy Library and Museum in Boston. And he told me his father was not as crazy as everyone thought, banging his shoe on the podium. He liked Kennedy. He didn't want to go to war. And this was obviously, it was the 50th anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And this was at the Kennedy Library. We had a lot of dignitaries there. And that's how that ended. The Marukla, the Soviet ship, Marukla come in and started taking missiles out, and it ended.
Uh-huh. Okay. So now let's fast forward a year.
Yeah.
A year and a couple weeks to November 22nd, 1963. Where are you working then?
That day, I was on the mountain, okay?
In Maryland?
It's Virginia.
Oh.
They call it on the mountain. And I was outside in the hall. My wife was working there. They got her a job. She in Office of Emergency Planning, who was, I think, responsible for that whole facility, OEP, so that you would have teams for security reasons. There were a lot of husband and wife people assigned, to that area. And I was out in the hallway outside the office, and my wife stepped out and said to me, "Norm, the president has just been shot." I said, What do you mean? And just at that point, my secretary stepped out of the office and says, Lieutenant Katz, come in right away. Come in here right away. We have a code, certain code. I come in, and then all hell broke loose. I knew that Kennedy went to Fort Worth. I knew he spoke at the hotel in Fort Worth the night before, and during the day he was going on a motorcade through Dallas, Dealey Plaza. They advertised all this in the newspaper, and I had been on the phone, and I was, excuse me, let me step back a moment. I was supposed to go with a group from the Secret Service around 22, 23, went to Fort Worth and Dallas. Colonel Morse said for me to, the night before, to stay back. Do not go, on that trip, to stay back, because we'll need you here. And there were only, back in the early 60s, there were only 312 Secret Service agents in the world.
Uh-huh.
Today, there were closer to 8,000.
Right.
The jobs obviously were different, but it was incredible times.
Right.
And for a young, I called myself a kid. For a young kid, I'm in the middle of it.
So your boss had decided not to send you to Dallas.
Right.
You were needed in Washington.
But
So when your secretary calls you into the room and says, we have a code, what happened?
I had to get on the line right away on our phone lines and see what the hell's going on. Direct line right down there to the head of the Secret Service during the Texas trip. Speak with him. His name just escapes me for a minute. Roy Kellerman. Roy Kellerman, who was in charge of the motorcade. Billy Greer was the driver of the motorcade. I'll think of his name in a minute, senior moment.
Did you talk to Kellerman that day?
No, I spoke to Chief Curry of the Dallas Police and the agent in charge of the Texas trip, whose name escapes me for the moment.
What did Chief Curry say?
When I think of his name, they said they just don't believe it. They had him in the Parkland Hospital. He went right to the Parkland Hospital. There were 3 shots fired within 7 to 8 seconds. First shot missed. Second shot went through the Kennedy's back, upper back, out his throat. The third shot took
Norman,
out of his head. Go ahead.
Someone told you that on the day of the assassination, that the bullet went through the president's back and came out his throat?
Yes.
Who told you that?
Clint Hill was there. He had climbed on the back of the limo. It was an open top limo.
Right.
I heard that from Roy Kellerman. In that limo was Jacqueline Kennedy and the president,
right?
Governor Conley,
and his wife
Nellie, and his wife Nellie, and there was a huge crowd in Dallas. Just a huge crowd in Dallas.
Right.
Nothing hostile.
Right.
Nothing hostile at all. And the Secret Service made some mistakes. They slowed the limo down. I mean, the crowds were big. And Billy Greer, you're supposed to go 15 miles an hour. You couldn't go like that through a crowd. And he had slowed down. And there was Oswald, 6 floors up.
Wait,
ahead.
okay, Norman, I'm
Yeah.
talking about what you knew on November 22nd. You didn't know that Oswald was up in the window. You didn't know that when you spoke with these people. I'm trying to understand what
Okay.
happened in the moment.
All right.
Not what you understand now, but what happened in the
Okay.
moment.
In the moment, the president was shot.
Right.
Okay. We knew he was shot. We knew they were going to Parkland Hospital.
Right.
I'm trying Win. His first name was Win Lawson, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. He was in charge of that. They said they were bringing the vice president up into a room in the hospital. The vice president at the time had literally wet his pants. He was a couple of cars behind, and Rufus Youngblood, his agent, jumped right on top of him in the car on their way to Parkland Memorial Hospital.
Uh-huh. What was Win Lawson like when you got him on the phone?
Nervous, I mean, rattled, shaken. We had never lost a president,
Right.
other than, years, centuries ago, whatever. And it was very, 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 very tense. The Kennedys family, I found out within a few minutes, it was ringing everywhere, wanted him out of Texas. And the attorney general says it was a crime committed in Texas and you couldn't take the body out.
How did you know that?
On the phone with the Secret Service. There were
They
several.
were saying that the attorney general said that?
Yes, the attorney general of Texas said it was a crime committed in Texas and you couldn't take the body out. And I think Bobby Kennedy got on the line with us. All these things were happening at once. He says, if you all have to draw your weapons and I have to send in the army, you're taking them out of there.
Right.
And after he was given the last rites of the church, the Catholic Church, the body was going to be moved. Lyndon Johnson was up in a room and no one was telling him anything. He was there with Lady Bird. And finally, we told him that the president was dead. But I say we, Secret Service and what have you, who was there. The president was dead. And we have to get him out of here and back to the United States. And Lyndon Johnson said, he is not leaving without Mrs. Kennedy. So they had called a funeral home and arranged for a coffin. And when the Secret Service agents were trying to load the coffin on the plane, it wouldn't fit through the doors. They had to use a jackhammer to snap the handles on the side off to push it in, to push this coffin in. And we were watching and talking all this time, and wheels were turning. Then they said to me, Norman, you have to get US 2, US 3. That's, there are several aircraft assigned to the president. US 3 on the phone, because on that was Secretary of State Dean Rusk, Robert McNamara, Secretary of Agriculture Orville Friedman, and about 7 others going.
And tell people where that plane was on that day.
They were going to Hickam Field, excuse me, to go over to Japan for a meeting.
Hawaii.
They were in Hickam Field in Hawaii to move on. They fueled up to fly from Hickam Field on to Japan. Hickam Field in Hawaii to Japan to have a conference. They said, you have to get that plane turned around. Lo and behold, there's a code book on every single presidential plane, and it changes daily. Well, the captain of that particular plane couldn't find the code book, and he couldn't confirm who I was. Well, the only one who would recognize my voice may have been Pierre Salinger. So I says, can I speak to Press Secretary Salinger? He got on the phone, and he got a hold of Dean Rusk, who says, I have the White House. Salinger says, I have the White House on the phone, and Dean Rusk, who was the head of that plane, he was the ranking official on that plane,
Right.
says he wanted to speak to a Major Anderson, a Major General Anderson, to confirm what the hell is going on. And they turned to me and then said, after he spoke to them, where do you want the plane to go? Back to Andrews Air Force Base or to Dallas? The hell is Love Field in Dallas.
Right.
I says, come back to Andrews. And that plane turned around and obviously came back to Andrews.
So just to make one point, did the loss of the code book affect communications between the White House and US-3 that day?
No, not really, just briefly.
Okay.
Just briefly, because we spoke in the open. I mean, the hell with it. What are you going to do? I had to reach, my orders were reach that plane.
Right.
Come hell or high water, and I reached that plane.
So, and were you privy to other communications with Air Force One or on that day?
No. But I knew, through the Secret Service, what was going on. It was going to fly back. And Johnson, we felt that Johnson had to be sworn in as president. The government fills right in.
Right.
And he said, well, this plane, Johnson was a tough old buzzard. He said, this plane ain't leaving without Mrs. Kennedy. He was very, very nice to her. Lyndon didn't get much respect in the White House. I knew that.
Uh-huh.
And the Kennedy family didn't like him. It wasn't JFK who didn't. I mean, the rest of them didn't like him.
Yeah.
Bobby was Attorney General at the time. Didn't like him. But it was politics.
Yeah.
Johnson got the job done. He was a backslapper. I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. He got things done, though.
Yeah. Now, did you have any communication with Rowley of the Secret Service that day?
It was very briefly because I was really dealing with the Secret Service who were down there, who were down on that trip. And you must have the names, they're all through the Google and what have you of who went.
Yeah.
And that many of them were out drinking the night before at the pub down there. And they had to, be on duty at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Raring to go. I mean, if you're out till 3 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 and 3, you ain't ready to go.
Right.
But basically the target, and we went through this with the FBI later, the CIA, Army intelligence, reconstructed the whole scene, and it could be done. Lee Harvey Oswald, there was one shooter. I can never be convinced of others. I know all the conspiracy theories, and it just didn't work. Thank God for Abraham Zapruder, who filmed that whole scene.
On that score, I just disagree with you, Norman.
Yeah, you think there's a conspiracy. My wife thinks there's a conspiracy.
I mean, all the Dallas doctors say that Kennedy was hit by a shot from the front. They all agreed.
What?
I mean, they're eyewitnesses. That's no theory. Those are the people who saw the wound. Yeah. And then you look at the film, it's consistent with the film. So.
Okay. I was there with 3 other officers from Continuity Government Program at Andrews Air Force Base when the plane landed. And
so, okay, so
went with it. Go ahead.
So where were you and when you went to Andrews?
Waiting for US 1 to come in. It came in and we were standing under the wing.
So where were you when this happened? At 12:30.
When he was initially shot?
Yeah.
I was at the special facility on the mountain.
Okay, so how did you get to Andrews Air Force Base?
We drove.
Oh, okay. So
4 of us drove.
You're talking to the plane. The planes are coming back to Andrews. So you get in your car. You're going to go meet the planes.
We drove back down.
Yeah. Okay. So and who's with you?
Andrew O'Connor, Chief W. Warrant Officer Bill Elder, and I think Major Dale Noble. Okay.
And you guys are going to meet the planes coming back to Andrews.
Right. I was right outside the room when the autopsy was being done at Bethesda Naval Hospital. My opinion, it should have been done there in Parkland.
Yeah.
Because at Bethesda, there was a couple of.
Well, wait, Norman, let's go back. You're on your way to Andrews.
Yeah.
You get to Andrews, what happens?
Okay, the plane comes in. All right, we, just stood off to the side. They had the gray ambulance come up and they took the coffin out first and loaded it and went right to Bethesda.
Okay, so what do you do?
We went to Bethesda.
By car?
By car. And we went up, I went up with Major O'Connor, Andrew O'Connor, and we were outside the door where they were going to do another autopsy. We were in uniform. Usually we didn't wear a uniform, but we were in uniform. And I was maybe 12 feet away. I saw, the head wound. I saw.
So you were in the autopsy?
No, outside, those swinging doors that had glass. The hospital doors were different 60 years ago. You could see it was an oval on each side and they swung open. And everyone was, protocol went to hell. Everyone was just rushing, to get it done. And all right, let me stop there. I saw what they were doing. The hole in his neck was bigger because they tried to do a tracheotomy at Parkland Hospital.
So, okay, so just, you're in the room, in the autopsy room. How many people are in that room?
A bunch. Maybe 8, 9, 10. I could see. I was not in the room. I was outside the door, a glass door, looking in. But the distance between me and the deceased president was maybe 10, 12 feet.
Okay, you could see that clearly.
Oh, I could see it clearly. The blood, everything was still dripping from the back of his head.
Yeah.
I'm,
So, uh, so you get to Andrews. The coffin arrives at about 6:30.
yeah,
Then you drive to Bethesda.
yeah, pretty quick, really quick. We had police escort,
Okay, so you had sirens going and all that?
The sirens going, the whole thing, because we floored it. We couldn't wait for Marines to come with a helicopter, come back and forth. Yeah, it was a short trip, really.
Right. So, so you get to Bethesda and you go to what is it? Is it like a theater? Is it a?
It is a theater, yes, where the autopsies were being performed.
Right.
Where an autopsy was being performed.
Right. And so you're standing outside.
Right outside the door.
And what's your job at that point? Do you have orders? Do you have?
I had orders to view and see, observe whatever I possibly could, and keep myself together. We're talking, you're recording, I'm being nice. I had to keep a tight rectum, hold it all in.
Yeah, it must have been a scary situation.
The stress was incredible. I was told when we had to come back by McAnally, was his name, Dr. McAnally, that because of the stress for me, I was not allowed to go to the funeral. I had to, stay calm. I had to come down.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I was a skinny kid. I weighed 128 pounds.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I had to come down from that pressure. And then we viewed everything. I knew mostly who was there, who was going, who the shooter what the Warrington.
Did you at the autopsy, did you see any of those commanding officers, LeMay or
No.
other?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I don't remember seeing them. A couple of agents were out, outside in the hall with us. I was closest to the door. I don't know who had authority as an arm, I don't even remember who. Major O'Connor, he was the senior officer. I was a first lieutenant. I mean, he was a major. I mean, it was a horrific time, horrific moment.
How long did the autopsy go on for?
Not long. Less than an hour.
Uh-huh. And then what happened?
Then they said that obviously he's dead, and then closed him up. We turned around and had to go back to our post. We went to the White House before we went back to the mountain, to the location, the special facility. And at that time, I have to stay home.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So, did you, that night, did you talk with your wife about this, or what you had just been through, or
Oh, yes.
How did you make sense of what had just happened?
I I couldn't. I couldn't make sense about it. My God, this happened on my tour, my watch. I didn't believe it. I mean, put yourself at 22, 23 years old. My wife was a few years younger than me. We were kids.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So, and your doctor said you couldn't go to the funeral because you were so.
The military doctor says the stress was too much. I should stay home.
Uh-huh.
I needed 24 hours to regroup.
Uh-huh. Wow. So, so okay, now you have the benefit of 60 years and had
Yeah.
a unique, kind of front row seat on history.
Oh, yes.
Um, uh, what should people know about that day,
It was horrible, a heinous day. I mean, I remember Nellie Conley saying, Mr. President, Dallas, loves you. We all know that story. And Mrs. Kennedy didn't want to change. We know that story. She
Yeah.
let them see what they did to my husband. And then we started to follow up. Who did it? How did he do it? And we started to put things together through the State Department, through the FBI, through the Army Intelligence Agency. We found the
Through the
site,
CIA? Did you get?
CIA also.
Yeah.
Through the site, they recreated the scene a few times.
Uh-huh.
How could it be done? Lee Harvey Oswald was a marksman in the Marines. He had purchased that rifle with a scope from Klein's Sporting Goods for like 1995 or something like that, and it had a scope on it.
Yeah.
He went to work that day, and it was in like a trash bag, and they had a carpool. And someone said, Lee, what do you have there? He says, oh, curtain rods. I got to get them finished, down there. And he had set up a sniper's nest on the floor of the Texas, school book depository.
So
Cartridges up there. Go ahead.
so you believe the Warren Commission account of the crime?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
My wife says no. I mean, there were stories, Jeff, that somebody saw Jackie Kennedy put a revolver in a plant going into Parkland Hospital from the motorcade.
I mean, yeah, yes, there's lots of stupid stories about JFK's assassination. That doesn't mean the Warren Commission is right.
And the people on the Warren Commission were not political people. They were. I was a kid at the time. Remember, you have different thoughts today.
Okay. No, I mean, look, I'm asking you, you were there, so you're entitled to your opinion. I mean, I disagree with that. I think we've learned a lot since then. The Warren Commission had no idea what was going on. The CIA wasn't sharing information.
Right.
So, there's alternative, but you're the witness to history. So the Warren Commission comes out, you believe what they said. Since then, nothing has changed your mind.
No.
Okay. Fair enough.
I looked at all the conspiracy theory, whatever I could possibly garner, and I laughed. I mean, the man behind the fence, he had to be a giant to be.
No, he didn't. That's not true.
Yeah, well, okay.
I mean, well, so nothing has changed your mind.
Nothing.
Okay, good. Okay, no. Now, and so what did you go on to do did you stay in the military rest of your career?
I stayed in the military, and the rest of my military career through ROTC. And my wife wanted to come home to start a family. Come home, meaning back to Massachusetts. And we came back, and I worked, in the family business for a little while, and I became selectman. It was like mayor of a community, a town in Sharon, population, Massachusetts, of about 7,000 to 9,000 people.
So you're out of the military at this point.
I was still in the reserves.
Okay.
I stayed in the reserves, and that's why I progressively moved up, to hold the rank of colonel. And I became selectman. That's like the mayor of a 3-member board, and was reelected constantly for 32 years.
So
where I also served as police commissioner.
So can I call you Selectman Katz? Was that your title?
Well, my title was Norm, yes, but yes.
So for 30 years, you're basically the mayor of this town in Massachusetts.
32 years. It was a white collar community, ton of lawyers, ton of physicians, college professors. It was 20 minutes to downtown Boston via.
So it sounds like you didn't have a big crime problem out there.
Well, not really. Some funny stories, but not really.
Yeah.
Not a big crime problem.
Yeah. Well, Norm Katz, what a pleasure to talk to you. Witness to history, and a civil servant, a mayor for many years. Thank you for taking the time. Fascinating stories, nothing beats an eyewitness to these events.
Exactly, and what frightens me, I'm the only one alive.
Yeah.
From this group, there's no one else alive. I tried looking for people. Everyone is gone except me and my wife, who's sitting in the other room drawing.
Well, Norman, thanks for sharing. Now people will know this story. This story is going to be preserved forever. So, hey, everybody, I wanted to call your attention to one surefire way to deepen your knowledge of the assassination of President Kennedy. And that's to read my 3 books about the CIA, a trilogy of spies that tells how the assassination actually unfolded in the eyes of CIA insiders. You see, my work on JFK's assassination is rooted not in the literature of conspiracy, but in the history of CIA operations. And that makes all the difference when it comes to understanding the events that culminated on November 22nd, 1963. You'll want to check out my 3 CIA books that tell the story of the founding generation of the Central Intelligence Agency and what 3 insiders actually thought about JFK's assassination. Meet charismatic Station Chief Winston Scott as he surveils Lee Harvey Oswald 6 weeks before Dallas. Meet urbane CIA Director Richard Helms as he fends off President Richard Nixon's attempts to blackmail him over JFK's assassination. Meet James Angleton, the ingenious, paranoid, and sinister counterintelligence chief who had controlled the agency's file on Oswald since 1959. In these books, you'll see the real historical foundation of the events that led to President Kennedy's assassination, and you'll understand this event in a much deeper way. Check out my books at jeffersonmorleybooks.com. You can buy all of these books there, as well as my other nonfiction book, Snowstorm in August. So check out the Trilogy of Spies.